Well, shit. I'm back, and I don't even know what fucking episode this is. I feel like I've been all over the place, and I haven't even really been focused. Not that I haven't been focusing on the podcast, but I have so much going on that it's almost seemingly taken a backseat, and for that I apologize. But I wanted to do an episode about what's been on my mind lately, things that I've been thinking about lately that I feel like might, if I shed some light, might help somebody out there going through some shit. Ultimately, relatability is the main theme of this podcast, and that's what I want people to do, is relate. So I feel like relationships, I haven't had a really good conversation or episode about relationships lately, and I know, especially in these times of like COVID and everything like that, where we're faced with ourselves and all of our fucking demons because we have nowhere else to go and nobody else to be around but ourselves. A lot of people are waking up to certain issues, I guess, in regards to relationships. I know that I have, most definitely. If you guys have been following, you know my story. You know where I come from. You know where I've been, who I've been with, the type of people I've been with, the toxic situations I've been in, and the learning process that it's been after being with those types of people. And so I got to thinking the other day, and I was like, shit, we're all works in progress, right? That is the ultimate message of this episode, is that we are all works in progress. If you grew up one of two ways. If you're a human being right now and you're an adult, and to me an adult is 18 or older, but realistically anybody in my age bracket, 25 to 35 to 20, even 40, whatever. If you're an adult, you grew up one of two ways. You grew up either, and this is not based in any scientific fact or anything like that, but this is my brain, coming from my brain. So somebody could be like, that's not true, but this is how I see it, right? The way I see it is you grew up one of two ways, and only one of two ways. You either grew up in a loving environment where you watched your parents love one another and get through things together and do things together as a family. When problems arose in your life, in your family's lives, y'all had fucking family meetings and learned to communicate, and you knew how to communicate effectively and healthily in that environment. You knew what the right consensual affection looked like. You knew what a safe, loving, caring environment looked like. You either grew up in that environment or you grew up in an environment where there was no place for love. It was survival. Fuck love. You had to survive. You had to survive your alcoholic stepmother. You had to survive the fighting of your volatile parents. You had to survive your abusive parent, your parent who sexually abused, your parent who verbally abused, whatever it is, whichever parent it was. You either grew up in love mode or you grew up in survival mode. To me, in my experience and talking to people and connecting with people, those are the only two fucking environments that you grew up in. And sometimes, even if you grew up in that loving, caring, beautiful environment where you learned the correct coping skills and you learned how to communicate the right way and communicate effectively to your partner because it was mirrored to you, at the end of the day, we are our environment. We are products of our environment, right? So, we mirror our parents. We are direct mirrors of our parents, whether we want to fucking believe it or not. Whether we want it to be true or not, we emulate what we grew up knowing. My mother used to always say, children learn what they live. And it's the truth. However you grew up, however you lived, that's what you learned to be. That's what you became in your adult life. right? So if all you knew was toxicity and hiding in a corner and avoiding and whatever it is, if all you knew how to do was fight, you're a fighter now. Period. In your relationships, it affects you as an adult. We think that things that happen to us as kids don't affect us now, but it's the contrary. It's very much the contrary. What happened to us as children made us who we are today, molded us for who we are today, you know? And so you either grew up in that loving environment or in that survival environment. And most of us, I'd be willing to say, grew up in that survival environment, whether we had a fucking parent or a step parent or somebody in our lives that caused us to have to feel as though we had to shut down and survive and not love and not feel love or show love, because listen, we are primal beings. When an animal is in the wild, there's a time for mating and there's a time for hunting and there's a time for fucking fighting off predators. You know what I'm saying? So if all you knew in your life was fighting off predators, whether the predators were your parents fighting, whether the predator was your grandfather, whatever it was, if all you knew was fighting off predators, you don't know love. You don't know how to express that love, because biologically our systems are built to fucking shut down when we're in fight mode. You're either in fight or flight mode or you're in rest and digest. And if you grew up in fight or flight mode, you don't know how to rest and digest, you know? And so then we move on in life. We grow up in these environments. And even if we grow up in those loving environments where our parents showed us what true love should look like and this and that, it's not always black and white sometimes. There are still scandals, things that happen. And at the very least, we learn how to have healthy coping mechanisms. But then we grow up and we meet people. You know, let's say you're one of those people that grew up in a healthy environment. You grow up and you meet somebody that you fall for who unfortunately grew up in a less healthy environment than you, in a survival mode environment. And that person who grew up in survival mode and may not even realize they grew up in survival mode comes to you, Healthy McGee over here, and says, hey, these are all my fucking issues. I'm going to project them onto you and make you feel like shit. And in the meanwhile, break your heart into 30 million fucking pieces. And then pretend like it was your fault because I'm damaged, right? Hurt people hurt people. We all know that. It's a cliche term. If you don't know it, it's the truest thing. Hurt people hurt people. Whether on purpose, whether by accident, maliciously, whatever the fuck it is, hurt people, right? So this hurt person, who may even be masking their hurt, comes to you, Healthy McGee, and hurts you. And so you started out not hurt, but then you ended hurt because you fell for this person, right? So now, Healthy McGee turned into Hurt McGee. And you don't heal from your fucking relationship that hurt you, where you push everything to the fucking wayside and pretend as though you dealt with shit, but you really didn't. You kind of just masked your pain with another fucking meaningless relationship or meaningless activity, whatever it is, right? You keep doing that, and then you forget that you're hurt. So you feel like you're healed, but you're not. You're really just fucking numb and going through the motions of life. And so you meet possibly Healthy McGee, another Healthy McGee, who's maybe gone through the hurt, but also gone through the healing, and is fully capable and able to be in a relationship and ready to be in a relationship and give everything that they can and have. And those people aren't perfect. They're not perfect partners, but they are good enough partners to provide a healthy relationship, a healthy and safe environment for anybody, right? So now you're hurt. You meet somebody who was hurt, but went through the motions to not be hurt anymore and get over the shit. And what do you do in your hurting? You inadvertently hurt that person, right? So I just feel like we're all in this fucking cycle. It's the reason if you listen to most people trying to date today, fuck COVID, like put COVID aside. If you look at most people trying to date today, they'll tell you whatever age, it's a big game. It's a big game of fucking baby bullshit. Should I text? Should I not? Should I show how eager I am or show all my cards up front? And the reason why it's like that is because we're all damaged fucking goods who didn't take the time and have not yet taken the time to heal. Whether it's heal from childhood trauma or heal from past relationships or do inner work and reflection to become better for ourselves and thus becoming better for future partners, we've not taken the time to heal. And I know I've done previous episodes about similar subjects, right? But if you grew up in survival mode, I think this is just me trying to go more into detail and say, you know what? We have to figure out if we are that person. Am I that person who grew up in survival mode? It wasn't until I started thinking about this shit, like literally started in the shower, shower thoughts. It wasn't until I started thinking about this shit on my own that I was like, shit. Okay, my environment wasn't abusive. I didn't grow up in an abusive environment, but I didn't grow up in an environment. I did grow up in an abusive environment when it came to my father and his wife. She was abusive, most definitely. But overall, did I grow up in an abusive environment watching my parents? No. I just never was able to see. I still have yet to see a good model of a healthy relationship. I've kind of had to create one on my own because it wasn't given to me. When I think of my parents might as well have been the same person in the sense that they were barely ever in the same fucking room. I don't remember them being in the same room together. I don't remember one moment where they like hugged one another or kissed one another. And maybe that's the reason for me being so needy when it comes to affection in relationships. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't grow up watching that. So while my childhood wasn't my childhood wasn't one that consisted of my parents directly abusing me. Was I in abusive situations? Absolutely, with my stepmom. And that's how I know for a fact, and I know this by being in therapy, that I now have my avoidant, non-confrontational, people-pleasing personality and disposition that I'm still fucking actively working on. It's going to take a while for me to be better, But did I grow up? Were my parents abusive? No, they weren't. Were they toxic with one another? Yes, absolutely they were. And I remember more fighting than I remember more fighting and screaming than I remember anything. When things happened in life, did my mother or my father sit us down and say, okay, we need, the four of us need to have a conversation and work this out? No, I don't have any problem solving skills when it comes to relationships, or at the very least, not that I don't have them, but I didn't develop them, or they weren't passed down to me from my parents. And I'm sure anybody watching this, many people watching this can probably relate to that. That when you think of your childhood, a lot of the times we don't even realize that we are that child that grew up in survival mode. Or we are that child that wasn't exposed to the best environment to learn how to be in relationship. you know? Especially nowadays, the divorce rate is so high that growing up in a divorce situation is almost the new norm. You know, it's like if you see parents that are still together, you're like, this is suspect. You know, like he didn't cheat on her at all. There's nothing. Like they still love each other. Like I look at fucking people my age at 31 and when they say that their parents are still together, I look at them and I'm like, and they still like each other? Like it's foreign. So when we grow up and that is the norm, a lot of the times it just becomes second nature. It's like, oh, your parents are divorced? Yeah, me too. Cool. Keep it moving. When realistically we should be looking and thinking, okay, your parents are divorced. That tells me that they didn't have the best relationship when they were together. And you are a byproduct of your parents and you lived with them probably during their situation, you know, hopefully not for too long during their trial and tribulation period, but most likely you did. You lived with your parents when they were going through the rough of their marriage. Unless your parents got divorced when you were 2 and that's all you know, then okay, you didn't grow up watching your parents fight. But if you're like me, you had at least 8 years, the first 8 years of your life experiencing your parents not really enjoying one another. And so when that is the main message that you're getting from your parents, the main message that is being passed down to you, how are you then, as the byproduct, learning to be in a relationship, a healthy relationship with good communication, with healthy boundaries and healthy coping mechanisms? How are you then learning that? And the answer, I would say, as a lay person who knows nothing of what the fuck I'm talking about, I would be willing to bet the answer is we don't. We don't have those skills. It's a skill. They're skills. You know, some of us are lucky enough to have the skills passed down to us from our parents, and then we hone down. Is that the word? Hone in. We hone in on them and perfect them throughout the years, or we become fucking jaded and tainted by somebody who didn't have those skills passed down. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a fucking vicious cycle. And then it leads us to this place that we're in right now. You know, the place of how the fuck am I going to find somebody in this fuck shit, fuck boy, game playing environment where people don't realize that they grew up in survival mode, where people don't realize that they're a work in progress, but they actually need to work to change. You know, my coping mechanism of shutting down and avoiding confrontation at all costs seemed very normal to me until I entered into therapy and realized, wait a second, this isn't how you deal with issues. Pleasing everybody just so that, you know, you don't piss people off or upset them isn't the best way to go about dealing with a problem. You know? How do you have kids like that? How do you have kids in a situation where your kid is in a scenario where they need their parent to protect them and they need their parent to be assertive and assert something? Your kid is, God forbid, in the hospital and they need you to assert to the doctor, this is what my fucking kid needs. How, if you are the type of person that people pleases and avoids confrontation and avoids being assertive, how are you then going to step up to the plate for your kin, your fucking family? You know what I mean? But we grow up with certain coping mechanisms that we are not even aware of. And that's how this entire podcast fucking began. It's self-accountability. Taking accountability for who we are and what we bring to the table, realizing our strengths, our weaknesses, understanding, no, I'm not that type of person. I'll never be that type of person. I will never be the type of person that does XYZ. But then again, I'm not that type of person that does XYZ now, but I can strive to be better. You know? Certain things we grew up with can't be changed. Certain things are literally embedded in our fucking disposition, our psyche, who they just made us who we are. You know, we're all like little pit bulls who either were taught, like, look, pit bulls have a bad name, right? They have a bad rap. They're apparently looked at as dangerous dogs, a dangerous breed. I happen to love them, which should say something about my dating history anyway, if this is the analogy I'm using. But regardless, I happen to love them. I think they're very misunderstood dogs, right? But the overall image of pit bulls is they are bad dogs. They are innately what's the word I'm looking for? They're innately vicious, right? But then if you watch the show Pit Bulls and Parolees, you can see the rehabilitation of these dogs. That, you know, when for anybody who doesn't know, Pit Bulls and Parolees is a show on the Animal Planet. I don't even know if it still exists or if it's still around, but it used to be one of my favorite shows. And basically it's this woman who hires ex-convicts as her workers for, I think it's a nonprofit, and she goes and she rescues pit bulls who have either been trained to fight or they've been abused, whatever it is. She goes and rescues them and then rehabilitates them and hopefully adopts most of them out. Some of them are not adoptable. Some of them are just too far gone. But most of them aren't. But the analogy I'm using is she'll get to this place where this pit bull has been tied up for weeks upon weeks on end in inclement weather, in certain situations having to fight off other animals, maybe other dogs, whatever it is, right? And the pit bull knows that a human did this to them. A pit bull knows that, you know, this thing that looks and talks like this woman did this to it. And so as a result, it trusts no fucking human being that comes into contact with it. It's in survival mode. So anytime it sees a fucking being walking erect on two legs, two eyes, and two arms, it says, human, alert, alert, and it goes into survival mode, and it becomes this vicious, barking, scary thing to try and scare off, essentially, or protect itself from the human. Because the pit bull has in its brain, human, bad, right? Hold on, my dog. So, come on, puppy. I'm editing none of this, by the way, so you're going to see this. This is my pit bull. If you're watching on the screen, this is my pit bull. His name's Luigi. So the moral of the story is we're all little pit bulls, right? And then she gets them. She'll rescue them. And they're obviously skeptical still. They fucking hate human beings, right? It's not just this one and done thing that happens. She rescues these pit bulls and rehabilitates them and shows them love and compassion, right? Shows them that not all humans are the same, that not all humans are assholes who fight pit bulls and abuse them. And then you see the disposition after the rehabilitation, after trust exercises and this and that. You see the change in these dogs. And you see that they go from these survival mode, vicious, teeth showing, jaw clenching fucking fighters to loving, compassionate, cuddly little bundles of joy. And do they still have their triggers? Abso-fucking-lutely. They do. They still have their triggers. triggers that you have to be careful with, and triggers that you have to be mindful of if you are to adopt this dog. But loving nonetheless, because they are rehabilitated to be taught that survival mode is no longer needed. And I think as adults, who most of us have grown up in some sort of survival mode, we haven't been taught that yet. I've come across many, many women in my life who unfortunately wanted so badly to be in love mode, but went through so much shit and were so afraid that they couldn't get themselves out of survival mode. They couldn't keep themselves out of survival mode long enough to feel true love. You know? I know girls now, females now that I've dealt with, that are in that same place where it's like, who sent you? You know, you want to be good to me? What the fuck do you want from me? Because all they're used to is somebody expecting something from them, whether it's a sexual favor or fucking whatever it is, right? We have not learned to come out of survival mode. My dog wants to leave now. There you go, Poopy. There you go. We haven't learned how to take ourselves out of survival mode. So we've become, right, okay, so we as beings have stress mode, like I said, fight or flight mode, which is a natural evolutionary response to stimuli in the environment, right? When we were fucking cave people in the Stone Ages or whatever the fuck, we would see a saber-toothed tiger, and I don't even know if I'm getting the errors right, but we would see certain animals or threats, and we would need that click to turn on so that we could fucking either fight off the saber-toothed tiger and hunt it for dinner, whatever the fuck we ate, I don't know, or run from it, right? So we still have that innately in us today because we're human beings. We have that fight or flight, and it's good. It's a natural response for when somebody is burglarizing our house, or we get into a car accident and we have to fucking flee the scene quickly, meaning get out of that car, not flee the scene like hit and run. Or, you know, our kid is running into the middle of the street and there's a car coming. We have to think quick on our toes and save the kid. You know what I'm saying? In those situations, fight or flight is absolutely necessary for our survival as human beings. But what we fail to realize is a lot of us are living in fight or flight on autopilot, and we should not. You should be in rest and digest for the majority of your time, not fight or flight. So when it comes to our relationships, when it comes to our romantic relationships, we enter, and because we've been living this way for so long, our entire lives, it's all we know. You know, it's like if you've ever read The Republic by, is it Plato or Socrates? I don't even know. I think it's Plato. Yeah, Plato's Republic. If you ever read Plato's Republic, there's that part of the cave where he talks about, he gives this the allegory of the cave. Go read it. It's basically, the allegory of the cave is basically him saying there are two people locked up in this cave. All they know is the darkness of the cave. All they know is their shadows, because they're chained up in this dark cave, and all they can see is their shadows. So the only thing they believe to be real is their shadows. And then one day they get freed. They go up to see the light of day, and they almost like don't believe in the light of day. One is like, holy shit, this is amazing. I never knew or experienced this world. And the other one's like, fuck this shit. I'm out. I don't know what the fuck this is. I'm going back to my goddamn cave. You know what I'm saying? So the allegory of the cave is we only know what we're exposed to. You know, I mean, that's obviously there's more to it than that. Sorry, I had to turn my camera back on. It fucking turns off. Anyway, there's obviously more to it than that, but the allegory of the cave is basically like, how do you know anything outside of all you've ever known? You know, how do you know anything outside of the only thing you were exposed to, or the only thing you've been exposed to, right? So if all you've ever been exposed to is hurt and pain and abuse and this and that, then how do you know love and healthy boundaries and compassion and the beauty of being in a relationship? You don't. That's really the simple answer. So when you don't realize that you've been living in fight or flight your entire fucking life, you don't realize that you're in fight or flight because that's just your normal. That's your baseline. Your baseline is fucking fight or flight. Your baseline is fighting people off and running away when people try to love you and show you respect. That's your baseline. The same way that my baseline was avoidance. I thought that was my normal. It was my normal, but I thought that was normal for everybody. Everybody just acted the way that I act. You know, everybody just kind of breezed through life, not being confrontational and trying to steer clear of any fucking confrontation that came their way. Whether it was fighting confrontation or just confronting somebody who hurt your feelings and expressing your feelings to somebody because your feelings are valid. Whatever it was, my baseline was avoiding that. Avoiding the uncomfortable conversations and thus becoming and molding myself into this knotted ball of yarn in order to appease everybody. Right? It wasn't until a fucking few mental breakdowns that I realized, wait a second. That's probably not the best way to go about doing it. And a lot of the times it isn't until our biggest heartbreak or our biggest upset in life that we are faced with how we are. And we realize, I am that survival mode person. This is a direct correlation, a direct causation of growing up in survival mode. I hope you guys are following because I didn't structure this. I've just been thinking about it a lot lately. You know, I'm just thinking about my relationships and thinking about my past relationships, my present relationship. Like, you know, I'm just thinking about it all and really coming to that conclusion that we're all works in progress. But the way that we make progress is to realize that we're works in progress and realize who we are. Identify who we are. Are you survival mode kid or are you love mode kid? Are you rest and digest kid or are you fight or flight kid? Who are you? And then from there, who are you with? Who is the person that you're with? Whether you're single or not, right? Who do you attract? Who are you attracted to? Are you attracted to survival mode Becky? Or are you attracted to love mode Luna? I don't know. It was an L. Survival mode Sally? Or love mode Letitia? I don't know. We have to be aware. We are so on autopilot with all of this stuff. We just enter into relationships and we want to feel good and we want to have some good sex. Like, who doesn't want to have good sex? Raise your hand if you don't want to have good sex. If you don't want to have good sex, get the fuck out of here. You're in the wrong place, because I want to have good sex. And I want my partner to have good sex. And I want you guys to have good sex with your partners, right? But we come into these relationships just thinking it's as simple as, I like you, you like me. Let's have sex and have a family. But it's not that simple. It's not that simple. We all come with 2 or 3 huge bags of, this is the shit I've been, this is the bag of previous relationships. This is the bag of how my parents fucked me up. This is the bag of how people outside my parents, maybe my family or close friends of the family, fucked me up. You know, like, there's 3 or 4 different bags of fucking baggage that we're all bringing to the table. Some are heavier than others. How do we enter into relationship with somebody, and somebody that we love, somebody that we connect with, somebody that we know is good for us or could be good for us, right? How do we enter into relationship with somebody that we know is good for us and that we are good for, and navigate through that baggage? To me, it's, you know, like the same way my good friend Carrie Driscoll talked about unpacking your grief, unpacking, you know, the different facets of your grief. Maybe that's the best way to navigate the baggage and lighten the load a little bit. Certain things in those bags don't need to be there. Certain things do. Certain things are permanent items, you know, like when you pack for a trip, you have your toothpaste and your toothbrush. You could probably do without toothpaste because you can get toothpaste when you get there, but your toothbrush, maybe not, you know, or your underwear, you're going to need that. But do you really need that particular fucking blouse with the roses on it? No. You don't need that. You already have a nice blouse for that one night. So, okay, we can get rid of this blouse because I already have this one. You know, I need my necessities. I need my fucking, my underwear. Do I need 75 pairs of underwear? No, I don't need 75 pairs of underwear. I'm not planning on shitting myself or pissing myself anytime soon. So, all right. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't pack strategically when we come into our emotional relationships. We're not strategic about our baggage. We literally just bring to our relationships bags and bags of shit that we haven't even unpacked yet. We haven't even looked at. And then we wonder why, when I'm throwing 5 to 6 heavy fucking bags on in the middle of the floor, and you're throwing 5 to 6 heavy fucking bags into the middle of the floor, and we mix our fucking baggage together, then we wonder why we end up in these toxic situations, or why, you know, if I'm standing on one side of the baggage and you're standing on the other, how can I hug you? How can I be close to you with all of that baggage in between us? You know what I'm saying? How do we truly get to know ourselves and our partners when we haven't looked at the baggage, each other's baggage, you know? And I've done a lot of kind of deep diving, and I'm still doing it. I'm still in the process of getting down to the nitty gritty of it. Like, why do I fall for people who are afraid for me to fall for them? Why have almost every single one of my relationships been with people who are afraid to open up to me in one way or another? Trust issues, abandonment issues, jealousy, insecurities. Why do I fall for people who are afraid to fall back? Afraid to be vulnerable? And when you ask why, it's not why am I this way? What? It's just trying to figure out, okay, what happened? It's literally a strategic why. It's not a, oh, why do I do this to myself? I need to go find somebody who X, Y, Z. No, it's a strategic, okay, what happened in my life to me that makes me drawn to these people? And what can I do with my current partner if, let's say, my partner is that way? What can I do to ease my own troubles and navigate through that person's issues, but also help that person navigate through their own issues to maybe get to the bottom of it, you know? The answer, this is not a podcast that has answers. This is a podcast that raises questions. I'd love to fucking talk to a relationship specialist. I want to talk to a sex specialist too, by the way. So if there's anybody out there who is or knows somebody, let me know. But why? I want to raise these questions within you, because I feel like it can at the very least inspire us to go within ourselves. And again, like Michael Jackson fucking said, it starts with the man in the mirror, or the woman in the mirror. We have to look within ourselves, right? So if I can create this ripple effect to you guys, where you guys are listening to this and you're like, yeah, you know what? Which one am I? Am I survival mode Sally, or am I love mode Luna? And who am I with? And maybe listen with your partner and figure out within yourselves who the fuck you are, what your issue is too. Be specific. Like, my issue is avoidance to the T. I will avoid. I'm a yes person, even down to this. If you're following me and my business ventures, my merch line, my clothing line, even down to that, I'm just a yes person. And I've always been that passive, you know? And so I've really had to, especially when it comes to building your own business, building a podcast, people are throwing suggestions your way and this and that, and you're collaborating with others. I've really had to catch myself when I'm being too passive, you know? Because as much as I want to collaborate, I am the one that needs to be calling the shots, and I need to be able to to trust myself with that responsibility to make the right fucking decisions and not leave it to anybody else, because it's me, the TF brand, the Tori Franco Show. However you follow me, wherever you follow me, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, even if you heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody's grandma who lives on the same block, however you came to this podcast and brand, this is me, this is the brand. It's the TF Tori Franco brand, right? And I'm driving the bus. So if I'm driving the bus, I can't let somebody else take the wheel for a second. But I always do, because that's what I default to. So we're on this journey together. I don't know what the point of this. I mean, maybe the point of this episode is to just raise the question to you guys as well, you know? Who are you in the relationship? Who are you in life? But, you know, specifically, who are you in a relationship? And is that good enough for you? And is that good enough for your partner? Will that be good enough for your future partner? You know, I think we have to ask these questions and become more self-reflective and become more self-aware, so that we can give more of ourselves to ourselves, but also to others. And we can be open to receiving love. You know? I realized that, I didn't have good models. I didn't have good good love role models growing up. You know, I grew up watching my one grandmother who was widowed before I was born. So, and she never remarried. My other grandparents, my Noni, may her soul rest. And my grandfather, may his soul rest. My Noni hated his fucking guts. You know, like he walked into a room and she cringed. So that was the model I grew up with. Same with my mother and father. You know? So most of the relationships in my life that were really pinnacle relationships, crucial relationships for me to learn how to give and receive love, taught me dick. Taught me nothing. So now I think I know how to give love, but I give love I think that's just who I've always been, you know, this affectionate kid. But there are times that I codependently give love. I give love because I don't want to lose the person. If that makes sense. So I guess the moral of this entire, the not the moral, but the purpose of this episode is to just raise the question to you, because I'm here too, trying to do the same. Who are you? We're all works in progress. We know that, and that's okay. That's totally fine to be a work in progress. But who are you? And what are you going to do to be better for yourself and for your future relationships? If you're out there wondering, why am I single? Why do I attract this? Why do I attract that? Don't make that a rhetorical question. Ask yourself realistically with an answer. Why? So that's that. I just wanted to come on and say that and shed some light, maybe, I don't know, some thought processes that I'm going through right now. If you have any suggestions on topics, let me know. Relationship based, either sex and relationships. I want the rest not the rest, but I want the next couple of episodes to be focused on that, relationship centered. And I mean, if anything else comes up in my life, I'm sure I'll just wing it, but let me know what questions you have, specific questions in the comments or whatever. The secret word for this episode is Mickey Mouse. If you're watching up to this point, comment Mickey Mouse anywhere on any of my social media platforms, and I'll know that you listened to this specific episode up to this point, to the very end, and I may give you a high five in person. And also join my my phone book. Text me if you have not already. I will leave the number in the description below. It's another way to stay connected to me and what I have going on. I send good morning text messages every day to motivate people. I do try to get back to people individually as well. I do I have almost 1,100 text messages so far. So it might not happen for everybody, but I'm trying. So there's that. And also, again, if you are still here at this point, December 11th, probably the day that this airs, December 11th at 8 p.m., the holiday merch drop is happening. We have new items coming out, cool items, different phrases, and I have a giveaway happening. I'm giving away to one lucky person a JBL speaker and a $50 Visa gift card to anybody entered. And the way you can enter is literally just make a purchase on my merch site and join my phone book. So if you're already joined in the phone book, then you're good. You're good to go. Then you just got to make at least one purchase on December 11th, and you're good. And you have a chance to enter to win the JBL speaker, and the $50 gift card. And hopefully I can draw a winner before Christmas, because I know $50 gift card would be such a good gift to give to somebody, or somebody struggling out there. It would be a good way to help pay for a gift for somebody. So I'm trying to have this all done by Christmas, and I plan on doing so. Anyway, I love you guys very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of my life and letting me be a part of yours. I appreciate you all very much. Until next time.